Thank you, sir. uh, Professor Jha asked me to say something on the connection between population and environment. Uh, and what I'm doing, I'm just presenting some simple slides to show how difficult it is to make a scientific connection between population and environment. This is not based on any empirical work of mine, this is based on what I have read and what I have seen. Now friends, actually regarding the consequence, determinants and consequences of population, again there have been so many rhetorics. Ancient times, people wanted to have more children, and this was for religious, ethical, ethnic reasons. Then in 18th century, it was said that population is an indicator of development and is desirable. Then we come to 19th century, a post-Malthusian era, after Malthus wrote his essay on the principle of population in 1798, and we started believing that population is bad. Then in 20th century, particularly in the middle, when after Second World War, a large number of countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America become free and want to develop, then it was said that population could be an hindrance in their development, and a slower, population growth will lead to a slower improvement in economic development. Then in late 20th century, the belief was that population growth would lead to environmental destruction and eventually apocalypse. And today, we are in a situation when we feel that the relationships are complex, regional, contextual, and therefore it's difficult to generalize, have a meta-narrative or essentialistic viewpoint on the two. Now, the major factors in environmental debate in the late 20th century, historically you find that, especially in the context of population, some important works are 1968 Population Bomb, then World Dynamics, then Limits to Growth. Their titles themselves reveal what these works wanted to say, and then the other works were all found support from 1798 book of Malthus, and they led to predictions of severe famines, spread of diseases, social unrest, which actually did not come true. And interestingly, in 1993, in an article in Population and Development Review, Paul Ehrlich argued that the carrying capacity of the earth is only 5.5 billion. At that time, this was the size of the population of the world, and today we have more than 7. So there were predictions of famine, all bad things, that due to population growth, all bad things will happen. Famines, diseases. But the problem in connecting population and environment, first of all, what is population? I don't know what, when somebody talks about making connection between population and environment, difficulties arise. What do we mean by population? Do we mean size, growth, density, momentum, age, sex, marital status, or composition, or distribution, or migration, or everything? Because depending on what aspect of population you take for building connections, you have one type of connection, and you change the aspect of population, you have another econometric equation. Relationship between size and environment is not the same thing as relationship between composition of population and environment. Similarly, in environment, what is environment? Is it natural resources or quality in terms of degree of pollutants such as carbon emissions? Professor Singh was talking about carbon emissions, or social environment, integration, disintegration. Sociologists would be more interested in social environment, cultural environment, and poverty and development, political environment, power, inequality, or aesthetic component, desire for more wilderness. It is, I can only say that at one time, in the second half of the 20th century, it has been more fashionable to link population with the development. But today, it is more fashionable to link population with environment. So, I don't know whether our scientific understanding has changed or fashion has changed. It is more fashionable today to talk about environment than development. There are several reactions to environmental issues that more focused on natural resources, prices, deforestation. I've been following literature of PERN and Population and Development Review. These are the issues. Water pollution, relationship with population size and growth, then philosophical issues, environmental ethics, Professor Barua talked about anthropocentrism, women and environment, cosmocentrism. And demographers are unfortunately not trained to think about these issues along the philosophical line. But development and environment have become postmodern in the sense that there are conflicts of goals, catching up with the Western countries or the needs of the rural poor. The national policy has to be sensitive to development, consumerism, as well as the needs of the poor. Then declining dependence on natural resources and culture, capital, labor, technology becoming globalization, localization, and lack of faith in local solutions. As intellectuals are linked to global knowledge and less linked to local knowledge. Now, as far as growth of population, because some students of population and environment, those who come from non-population background may like to know actually what happened to population. Now, from the beginning of the 19th century, world population started growing. Before that, the population was for millions of years. Since man first appeared on the planet Earth, population was more or less constant. And in the beginning of the 19th century, sometime it started increasing, rose from 1 billion in 1820 to 7 billion. So we took millions of years to reach the first billion mark in 1820, and now we are close to 7 billion. So this is the time when population started growing. There are estimates that population may stabilize at 9 billion in 2050. With growth multiples varying, what worries most and what should draw our attention is the issue of growth multiple. Growth multiple means the ratio of size of population when demographic transition has occurred, means fertility and mortality have come down to replacement level or biologically lowest possible levels, to size of population when both fertility and mortality were high. Now this growth multiple varies from region to region. In Europe and China it was around 4, and in certain African countries like Uganda it is going to be 30 or more. In India, population grew from nearly 250 million in 1921. Till 1921, our population was fluctuating. For a number of reasons, sometimes it would increase, sometimes decrease. So 1921 can be taken as a benchmark, and our size of population was 250. Now in 2011, the latest census, our size is 1210. So we have become almost 5 times. We can say that the growth multiple in case of India is going to be 5 point something, which is not all that bad. But from environmental point of view, it's not population alone, because as it has been shown in the earlier papers today itself, that the total impact of population also depends on consumption per capita or gross domestic product per capita and technology effect. Professor Sanjay Singh's paper particularly touched upon this issue, consumption per capita and technology effect. Population alone is not a factor. Other factors complicating the population environment issue is that the second demographic transition is unbound, not only in Europe, but also in relatively more progressive parts of the developing countries. Fertility is going below 2.1. 2.1 is believed to be the level for 2 children. 2 children per couple is supposed to be the level which leads to stationarity of population in the long run. Due to demographic momentum, population may still continue to increase or decrease, but in the long run, if each couple produces 2.1 children, then the population stabilizes. The problem is that today, increasingly, more and more countries are going below 2.1, and this is happening not only in the developed part, and some of the developed countries, the total fertility rate has gone down to 1.1 or 1.2, but not only developed countries. In India also, there are so many regions or states where now you have number of children less than 2.1. Himachal Pradesh is the latest. In India, you find a situation in which something like Kerala, Goa, these are the Africas of India, and then the Europe of India, and you have Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, the Africa of India. So in India, I would say that the high growth rate of Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand should not worry us. What should worry us? The fertility rate going below 2.1. very soon, maybe, in some states maybe 5 years, some states maybe 10 years, some states maybe 15 years, not more. In all the states of India as well, our fertility rate is going to be below, national level has already come down to 2.5 or even lower. NFSS 3 and other surveys have amply demonstrated that this is happening. And chances of third demographic transition or fertility reversal means, will fertility improve after reaching 2.1 or less, after reaching 1.4, 1.3, 1.2, will it improve? The chances are very remote. Once women refuse to produce children, no matter how much money you give, there is so much of literature on this issue in the European context. They are willing to pay them 5 lakh rupees, as much money as to software engineers, but women are unwilling to produce children. So actually then we need not talk about population. When Professor Jha asked me to link population and environment, I thought that we need not talk about population. Actually the problem is going to be below replacement population and not the excessive or rapid growth of population. And then women's education is destroying the this is not my view, this is a view of several demographers, and several articles on this issue have come, that there is a negative relationship between women's education and society's power to survive.
But don't call it destroying, maybe declining.
Destroying the growth potential.
Yeah.
Destroying the growth potential of population. And then there are other issues, migration, multiculturalism and so on, STI, reproduction. Now, today in the field of population, actually there are two major issues. One by Garrett Hardin, who is supporter of human ecology view, and who say that do not talk about shortages of resources, etc. Talk about long age of population. And he says that you should not, world should not support Ethiopia. Some countries were mentioned in the earlier lecture where they are facing droughts or famines and people are dying. And the Garrett Hardin's view would be that do not support them. Because if you support them and you save 5 lakh lives today, you are only creating a situation in which 50 lakh people will die tomorrow. So those who are so altruistic that they are willing to do something to save 5 lakh lives today, actually there should be, they are the people responsible for killing of 50 lakh people tomorrow. Once you make disequilibrium in demographic economic system. So, and if you help them at all, if you help these people at all, then put a condition, and the condition should be that you will reduce your population growth, not only fertility growth, because fertility growth will have long-term implications. Tell them to reduce their population growth rate immediately. And another view is Julian Simon. Julian Simon is a convert. Initially, Julian Simon believed in the same thing in which Garrett Hardin or others, or Malthus or others believed when he wrote the book, The Economics of Population. He was of the same view. But in 1981, he wrote the book, The Ultimate Resource, in which he refuted Malthus and modern day computerized Malthusian model, saying that the argument for continuing modern, he said that the scientific models which showed that population is detrimental to development or environment are actually based on faulty scientific reasons, and he argued for continuing moderate population growth, that from the long-term perspective it is free market and moderate population growth which will be more desirable. From Simon, this is in one of the articles of Simon, a kid in class was dozing and all of a sudden he woke up with a sudden start and he said to the fellow next to him, what happened, what did he say? And the fellow next to him said, well, he said that the sun is going to burn out in 7 billion years. And he said, thank goodness, I thought he said 7 million. This highlight. So Julian Simon would say that these long-term forecasts make no sense in case of it. Now, this debate is inconclusive because there are questionable indicators, non-linearities in relationships, interactions and contextual relationships, questions about quality of data. Many people don't even believe census of India, short-term and long-term view. substitutions of resources, human inventiveness, and differences in visions of happiness. What is happiness? Before you talk about whether high population or low population or anthropocentric or cosmocentric vision will lead to happiness, but what is happiness? There is no consensus regarding the models of happiness, and then uncertainties and unpredictable forces, and the debate is likely to continue. Questions on the issue of perspective. Whose perspective? Perspective of the poor, women, dispatches. From whose perspective are we trying to link population and environment? And interest of some people, sustainable development, they talk of interest of the future generations, but can those not yet born take decisions of plants and animals? Cosmocentric view, are they conscious of their interest? I don't know whether we can ever look at population environment equation from that animal's perspective or from that plant's perspective. Deep, and there is this debate. There are philosophy like deep and social, and there are also criticism of that. Ecofeminism, androcentrism. Now, basically, there are two approaches. In one approach, you believe in science, democracy, rationalism, and another is philosophical and aesthetic. One approach has a broad concern for equality. In the morning, I was listening to the first speaker. There was more emphasis on urban, but my fieldwork has shown that it's not urban. Actually, rural areas, tribal areas, there are environmental problems everywhere. And but the solutions, the causes of environmental problems in urban areas and the causes of environmental problems in forests and in tribal areas are different. And we have to understand these differences and try to see things broadly from the perspective of equality and humanism. There are some issues on which we can. So, despite the fact that we cannot agree on anything regarding the relationship between population and environment, population problem is more than solved. Actually, we should worry about why population problem is getting solved. Why are we going below 2.1? But more than that, despite our difficulties in comprehending this relationship, there are some broad areas of agreement. Avoid emotionalism and apocalyptic thoughts. Solutions must be found in science and democracy. Use a middle of the road approach, and non-human things will continue to have only instrumental value. This is a fact. We can never comprehend the world from a lion's or a cat's or a dog's perspective. And religious and cultural appeals have their own place, but they provide no universal yardstick for judgment. Environmental issues to be linked with economic issues, and environmental movement, the Chipko, the EPICO, the anti-dam, anti-nuclear, and to be seen as a response to conflicts caused by development. So development is an issue, and from both point of view. One point of view is that everybody needs development, and second, that development can also cause certain problems for certain people. So not merely a warning against the potential threat to human survival, but we have to see things from the perspective of development of local people, indigenous, tribal, women. Ecology as justice emerging from existential reality, and ensure that environmental destruction costs more to those who destroy it. Rationally and non-violently demonstrate why a perspective change is necessary for peace, justice, fairness and freedom, and above all for self. Okay. These are some references, and finally I like this line from Buddha: do not say things for the sake of personal advantage or to impress people. Because I am really confused and therefore I want to stop here.